All right, good morning, everyone. This next hour I got with you, these are the moments that I've always known anything's possible. And if you've lived a life, you know that there's trials and tribulations. Can we agree? And this event's about hacking your health. And what I'm going to hopefully share with you today and show you is my life and how I use these tools and how I use systems to make sure that we can understand our nervous system better. Now, to give you a background, I grew up as a military kid. I grew up with two very powerful people. One, my mom, who was in logistics, supply for the military, and she was probably the only female at that time to have her position. My father, who was in special forces. So when I was young, I had to learn really quickly, your nervous system's going to be taxed, you're going to have to adapt, and if you can't adapt, you're going to crash. And so when you've got one parent who's in logistics and understands like efficiency, and you've got another parent that is special forces and is all about resilience, you have this dichotomy of like, okay, what do I do? Well, here's the cool thing about when we're hacking, right? We're taking efficiency and logistics and we're creating resilience. We get to merge the two. And that's what makes the best of the best in the world. So my hope for you is that over this next hour that we get to talk, that you learn a little bit about logistics and efficiency, systems, processes, and protocols. And on the other side, you learn how to be resilient and be able to accomplish your goals, systems, or problems you may have. So when I look at my life and I look at what I do with my athletes, I tend to talk a lot about nervous system regulation. Because at the end of the day, and if anybody heard Robbie speak yesterday, he talks about consistency. And so often we buy tools and we get, programs and it's like, okay, this is great, but then we stop. And then we fall back into a pattern or we get into a situation and we get overwhelmed. And it's like, this is hard. Well, anything worth getting is going to be hard. Can we agree on that? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So my challenge to you today is to close your eyes for 1 second. Because I want you to feel where you're at. I want you to feel your body. And I want you to think, is my body tense? Is it relaxed? Am I calm? Am I anxious? Where am I in this very moment? Keep your eyes closed. Anyone who's anxious or stressed, raise your hand. Okay. Anybody that's excited, happy, raise your hand. Okay. Anybody that's going through a dark time right now, raise your hand. Okay. Everybody open your eyes. When you can feel where you're at, you can start to heal. And I often tell people, I'm like, if you're fighting something, you're creating friction. But if we can feel something and we can notice it, now we can start to heal it. So close your eyes again. And do me a favor and just take a big, deep breath in through your nose. Fill your stomach, your chest, and then breathe all the way out through your nose. And then breathe all the way in through your nose. And then breathe all the way out through your nose. One more time. Big breath in. And then out. Keeping your eyes closed. If you were anxious, stressed, do you feel more calm? Raise your hand. If you were calm or happy, do you feel more in tune? This is how important understanding the nervous system is. So go ahead and open your eyes. So you're going to come on a journey with me today. We've got 1 hour. So I want to take you through what I've been through in the last 2 years. And I've been doing this for 17 years when we look at modalities, hacking, performance. But I've always looked at it from a 1% performance side. I'm like, how do I take my individuals that are already amazing elite athletes and get them 1% better, or 5% better, or 0.5% better, right? But something happened to me a couple years ago, and I had to learn how to come out of like dis-ease and the most stressed state I've ever been in. And we'll talk about that. So when we look at things, our environment affects our DNA. Bruce Lipton. I had the pleasure to teach with him for 2 years at Life West. Learned a lot from this man. And when I started realizing that my environment affects who I am and my DNA and my cells, I got real clear real quick on who I hung out with, who I put myself around. And you guys are in this room right now because you're around people with a conscious collective mind. Can we agree on that? Like, we want to save this world. We want to be light. Agreed? The second thing is that a lot of times we get these modalities and we don't know how to use them or we can't travel with them. And so my biggest thing that I teach my athletes is called portable performance. You should be able to have tools with you at any time, anywhere, to regulate your nervous system. And the third thing that we talk about is what are your goals and how can we actually create this opportunity of efficiency and resilience. So this is your destiny, the hidden power to believe and control what you can be in the future. All of you have the answers within you. So often we go out to experts like me and other people. But I'm telling you, the answers are already inside you. But we got to be vulnerable. We got to open up. We got to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, where am I at today? What am I doing today that's going to get me where I want to be tomorrow? And then we got to have an intention. And I'm really big on intention. No matter what you're doing, you should always have an intention around what you're going to do. And that could be, for instance, like this talk. My intention was, look, Sean, just have self-love, be light, be honest, be vulnerable. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about for me. For you, it might be when we're stepping into a cold plunge, you may have a fear. You may have a limiting belief. And so if we say like, man, I'm scared to do this, and it's like, I don't want to be scared, your brain's going to go to subconsciously this negative emotion of I don't. So instead of the I am not scared, it's I am powerful, I'm courageous. So we're changing this sub-language in between our brain and our body to help us accomplish what we want to do. So all of you today, right now, in this moment, we're going to set an intention for what you want for the rest of this weekend. You're here for a reason, right? Let's level up in this moment together. Because if we all level up, and if you saw that photo yesterday that Robbie put up here with the cell phone and that big EMF field, we're a big EMF field, but we're a healthy one. So do me a favor real quick, and I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about one thing that you need for your life, what you personally need for your life right now to be who you're supposed to be for this world. And I want you to get really clear. What is that one thing? Raise your hand when you got it so I can see that the room's all playing. Awesome. Open your eyes. So here we go, Nikola Tesla, and since I've met Robbie Besner, I have been turned on to an entirely different world of frequency and vibration and energy. And my whole life growing up, you know, I moved 37 times in my life so far. I went to 13 schools in 12 years. And so I'd move from a base near the beach, I'm surfing, I've got board shorts, I've got, you know, flower t-shirts on. The next thing I know, I'm in the middle of nowhere with kids wearing Jinkos, they got, you know, metal, you know, wallets, and they're wearing like independent or skaters. And so at a young age, I had to learn really quickly to understand the frequency and energy of who I was around and who I wanted to be. So I became a chameleon. Let's talk about Kilimanjaro for a minute. 2022, I was on the top of my life. I had literally just gotten married. I was going to an adventure moon, got to go to Africa, spent 21 days. And if any of you know, Kilimanjaro is not necessarily one of the easiest mountains to climb. But I had just gotten done doing spring training, off season, and I was doing a lot with MLB. So I didn't have a lot of time to train. And so I said to myself, I said, how can I use what I know to make myself not have to train as hard, but train smarter? And so what I did is I started to look at, okay, what does Kilimanjaro have? What am I going to go through? And this is how you have to think about your life, and if you're dealing with a health crisis or you're just dealing with a performance opportunity, is what am I up against? And so you go through 7 different geoclimates on Kilimanjaro. And at this time, I was like, okay, I got a staff, we're kicking butt, we're probably the top people when it comes to performance in Scottsdale. I'm like, I can figure this out. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start off in basically like the Amazon jungle, right? But I'm going to end up in the Arctic. So what's my nervous system going to do over this amount of time that I'm on this mountain for 7 days to where I can make sure that I can accomplish this goal and dream? Because I was not going to fly to Africa and not accomplish this goal. I was like, I don't care what it's going to take. I'm going to do this. Well, number one, I was fighting it, right? Because at the end of the day, if I would have just said, slow down, which is one of the lessons I learned in Africa, it would have made it so much better. But I didn't have time to train the way that I should have. But what I did have was tools. I had PMF, I had red light, I had sauna, I had a cold plunge, and I had oxygen. and I had my breath. And with those 6 things, I said, okay, I'm going to create a program to train myself for Kilimanjaro. So what I would do is I would actually bring my PMF home, and at night, I would sleep on it for 6 to 8 hours on a low frequency, because I needed to make sure that my body had that energy capacity throughout the night. I'd get up, I'd make sure I do my breath work. I'd jump in my cold plunge to create an autonomic nervous system response, so that way I adapted quickly in the morning, because these are early morning, late night hikes. Then what I would do is I would say, okay, great, I'm going to go get in the sauna for 2 hours. At first, I started at 30 minutes, just to let you know I built up. This is towards the last week of traveling there. So now I'm in the sauna for 2 hours, but I'm putting myself into the stress of that heat. Again, think about what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going through the sauna, then I'd get out and I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm going to go for a hike. And I'd go do like a 2-hour hike. Then I'd come back, I'd jump in my cold plunge. I'd re-regulate my nervous system. And then I'd get back in the sauna. So when I started to look at the science behind all this, I said, okay, wait a minute. I can train athletes smarter and not harder, and we don't have to fight and push like we were trained as kids. No, it's just more, more, more. Not necessarily. If you've got the capacity and you already got this amazing body, we've just got to find efficiency. We got to create capacity within your cellular and your nervous system, right? So what was amazing about this trip, and I want you to watch this video real quick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Hakuna Matata.
Kuna Matata.
Hapo chuku.
Kuna Matata.
What do you
Pole
notice
pole.
about this video? Everyone's happy, right? Okay. When I sign, by the way, if you get to know me, I make a lot of quick decisions and I don't really look at the details. I just figure it out as I go. And you know, when I signed up for Kilimanjaro, I've done a lot of big mountains and I've had Sherpas and people to help me out. And so when I got to Africa, I thought I literally was going to have my guide and a buddy of mine, and this is what it was going to be. No, this was our entire team. And throughout this experience, I went through highs and lows, right? Because this is the first time I've taken off in about a year. So if anybody knows about taking vacation, when you're a workaholic and you're riding a cortisol wave, you crash. Can we agree on that? So I didn't know this then. And this is what's great about being humble and vulnerable, is that after this trip, and you're going to hear part of the story, I learned how to learn about some of this stuff. I got really sick on Kilimanjaro on day 2 and 3, to the point where like I was freezing. And if you're out there, they don't really have bathrooms. So like you're trying to go out in the middle of the night. It's cold. You're like, I don't want to get out of my sleeping bag. I just hiked 15 hours. And our team took us into their tent. And I was like, hey, can we come hang out with you? And they're like, what? Nobody ever wants to come hang out with us. We're porters. And I said, no, I want to come hang out with you. And the guy's like, sure, come in the tent. So we get inside, and immediately, with their love and their energy, even though these guys, a lot of them can't really speak very good English, we started to talk about football, which is soccer, by the way. We started to talk about their lives, what pains they were going through, what situations. And it gave me a moment to step out of what my goal was, to realize the gift that God's given me, of being able to maybe give them something along this ride. So what was unique about this whole trip, and I want you to watch this video. What did you feel there? Happy, joy, right? I was taking the video. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm in there. Don't you see me? This is me. No, but energy, right? So here's the coolest thing that I've learned so far in this journey of performance, is that it's not always the modality. It's our voice. It's our energy. It's our intention. And at this point, this is the day before we summited. This is the night before. And it was a really rough day that day. We got backed up on one of the parts. It's one of the hardest parts that you actually get into in Kilimanjaro. And everyone was exhausted. And the porters were exhausted. And you could just see, like, everybody was just, like, getting there, right? And they're carrying packs. These guys are superhuman, by the way. And they do this for a living. And what's interesting about this is that I may have not had my red light. I may have not had my PMF, but I had energy through them. So obviously, had a really amazing day getting up to the top of the mountain. Got to enjoy some beautiful views. And I get to the top, and we're hanging out up top, and everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, I get altitude sickness. Like severe altitude sickness. To the point where I'm throwing up. I'm defecating. I'm like, my body is shutting down on me, right? The only tool I had at that point was breath work. So I used breath work to calm my nervous system down. And then I had a 16-hour hike out of the mountain to the lower camp. And so what's unique about this is that when I got to the lower camp, I did have my red light, by the way. I did have other stuff stored in the van, and I was able to recover fast. So I come back. It's now September. We get back from Africa. I'm on top of the world still. I'm about to speak at one of the biggest conferences in the world in Beverly Hills, and I'm speaking on PMF, so I'm excited. And 2 days before I go to LA, I find out that my wife's cheating on me. And my life literally is like just turns like upside down. And so I have to go here to LA and speak at this conference, and I got to put my game face on. And I'm driving from Scottsdale, LA, because I didn't even want to take a flight, because I didn't want to be around people. And I'm driving there, and I'm just trying to like calm down, because I'm like, look, dude, you have to speak. You have to be here for this event. You have to be here for these people. And so I get to Beverly Hills, and I pull into the hotel. I get to my room, and I just start bawling. I'm crying. I'm miserable. And they're like, hey, you coming to dinner? I'm like, I'm not coming to dinner. And so I took what I had. I had our PMF, I had other things, and I said, all right, what are frequencies I can use right now to regulate my nervous system to help me get through this weekend? So that's what I did. And day 2 of this conference, my life changed forever. And I got a chance to meet Robbie Besner. And him and Melody both took me aside, and they were like, hey, something's not right with you. And I'm like, great, here we go. What's not right with me? Do I look good? Like, they're like, no, like, what's going on? Like, they were the first people out of this whole weekend, that everybody that I had touched and spoken to and been to, and that even noticed anything was wrong. And I said, it's a long story, I really don't want to get into it. And Robbie's like, hey, take my number down, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. And the next day, no joke, he calls me. He's like, all right, let's talk. And I'm like, I don't know you, but I'm going to be vulnerable. This is what just happened to me. This is what I'm going through. And he's like, I'm going to be here for you. And I said, all right, cool. So let's fast forward 2 months. I went from 220 down to about 170. I wasn't eating. I was miserable. I was showing up to my practice because it was off season, so I had to be there for that. So I would go in, I'd take care of my clients and my athletes. I would get done with work, and I would get out of the practice and go home and just sit on my bathroom floor. And I was like, I wasn't eating, but Robbie would call me every day, and he'd be like, are you eating? Are you drinking water? I'm like, yes, no. And finally it was December. It was right before Christmas, and I'm sitting on my bathroom floor, and I was going to take my life. And I'll never forget the phone call that I got from my brother at Titleist Performance Institute, Greg Rose, and he's like, something's not right. I just felt like I had to call you. And I'm like, that's interesting. And he told me, I need you to drive to someone's house right now. I don't care who it is, where it is. I just need you to drive there and call me. In fact, I'm staying on the phone with you. So he stayed on the phone with me. I drove to my buddy's house, and my buddy Brian Kane is probably one of the top mental coaches in the world. And I get into his house, and I just like break down. And he's like, his other buddy comes in, he's like, dude, I'm signing up for this Ironman. And I'm like, here we go. Great. They're gonna want me to do an Ironman. I'm like, I haven't ran since college. And I got hit by a car last time I was on my bike. And I'm like, I love the water. And he's like, you need to sign up for this Ironman. And I'm like, dude, I'm 150 at this point from 220. And I'm like, how am I gonna do an Ironman? I'm like, number one, I can barely get out of bed to get to work to serve. How am I gonna do this? And he's like, you're gonna figure it out. And by the way, if you do the Ironman, you still wanna kill yourself, I'll come sit by your side. I'm like, I'm in. Don't challenge me. So I put my credit card down, I sign up for this Ironman, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So what do I turn to? I'm like, Robbie, what do we have, and what can we start to use to get my body back on track? Because I'm not eating, I'm not drinking, I can't eat. And we're like, we can use energy. We can use the tools that we have and that you have at home, just like you did to train for Kilimanjaro. That was a 1% performance opportunity, right? Now I'm in this disease state, I'm in below health, my cells are not polarized, and I'm in this dark state. So it's the first time in my life that I'm having to take these tools to use them from a sickness, darkness, diseased approach, not a performance approach. And so what did I do? Just like Kilimanjaro, I said, okay, what does the Ironman entail? Like, what am I gonna have to do that day? And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to swim a 2-mile swim. Awesome, I can barely walk out of my house right now. I'm like, I'm gonna have to ride 114 miles on a bike. And I'm gonna have to run a marathon after doing all that. I said, I need capacity. So I said, all right, well, I got my TheraPro, and this is where my life changed on PMF. So when we look at PMF, that's pulse electromagnetic field therapy, there's high Gauss and there's low Gauss. And I was always a high Gauss guy. I'm like, more is better, right? Just pump me, energize me, give me it, let me feel it. But when you're in a diseased, chronic, or like lessened state, you're gonna overpower your system. And I was doing that. And so I was like, this is where I really fell in love with low Gauss. So I started being like, all right, well, I'll sleep on my TheraPro mat every night. I'll put it on the rest restore state. So I'll get at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep on this thing. I'm gonna keep it at a lower temp, but at least I know that I'm getting exercise. Because that's really what PMF is, right? So it's cellular exercise. So I started doing that. I'd get up in the morning, and I was like, I'll jump in my cold plunge. The coolest thing about that point is that I started to get less depressed because I had that dopamine response. I started to be able to react differently. And I was like, man, I just accomplished something. I've spent these last 6 months of my life wallowing in my darkness and forgetting the power that I have inside me. So I'd get into my cold plunge, I'd get out, and I'd say, all right, I'm gonna go to work today. So then I'd go to work. I'd come home and I'd be like, I can't run around the block, so let's just start walking around the block. So I started walking around my block. Then I get to this point where I'm like, I gotta actually start training. Well, I started learning about nano-oxygen, and Robbie was like, hey, I'm gonna send you this TheraAir. I want you to start using it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know much about this technology, but I'll give it a shot. So what I learned about this nanotechnology of oxygen and how it absorbs in the body, and as I started using this, I was like, well, what if I used this while I was on the bike? How if I started stacking this information? And so I got a bike trainer, and I got on a bike, and I started using the oxygen while I was on there. I was like, I noticed that I had more energy. I noticed that I was recovering faster. And I was like, okay, there's absolutely something to this. So I started doing that daily. And then I'd come home, and I'm like, this is gonna be a long situation, and I've got a lot of toxicity in my body. I'm gonna start doing sauna before bed. So I started using my sauna daily at night before I went to bed, and I was getting red light as well as the infrared adaptation into my body. I was sweating. And so a lot of times we think, oh man, I gotta go work out. I gotta sweat to work out. I gotta get this hard push. Well, when you're in that beginning state, you can use these tools as exercise. So my body was literally getting energy. I was releasing toxins. I was getting a sweat. And I was training my body to get ready to train. So then fast forward a little bit longer. I said, okay, this is working. Let's keep this up. So I started cold plunging twice a day. And then I said, okay, any time that I get into a negative thought, I'm going to jump into it at the clinic. My patients are all on board with all my crazy ideas. And then when I noticed that my energy was coming down, I'd go get on my TheraAir. Or I would go get into the TheraPro. And I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to put 15 minutes in, setting a time, because this is about time capacity overtime, right? So if it's an all-day race, I can't just train for a couple hours. I've got to train my body throughout the day to make sure I can accomplish this awesome goal. So I start doing that. Then I get to these limiting beliefs. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to do this. You can't do this. Like, you're crazy. Like, you only have 3 months to train for this Ironman. It takes most people a year. Like, my coach is like, dude, you're not even going to finish this thing. He's like, you're not doing your workouts, you're not doing this. I'm like, but I am. I'm just not doing it your way, the way that you're being taught to do it. I'm doing it from a way of understanding the nervous system in my body. So then my other buddy would show up at my house, 5:30 in the morning. I didn't want to get out of bed. He'd make me get out of bed. And we started getting training going. And this is where I now went from this disease state, this darkness, this depression, and I started moving into this like, wow, I'm learning who I am again. I'm starting to understand the power that's inside me. I'm starting to understand that everything that I have done over these last 17 years is why I'm here today and why I needed to go through that. So now I get into the optimization performance. Now we're a month out from the Ironman. And I'm like, okay, now I've got to train my body differently a month out because I know that day is going to be tough. So what would I do? I'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to go for a long ride. And I'd make sure I went on an actual long ride. I'd come back. I'd get in the sauna. I'd put my TheraAir on, and I'd do my breath work. And I'd get my nervous system regulated. Then I'd go out, and I would do a run. We called this a brick in Ironman training. So then I'd go out and do my run. And then I'd come back. I'd get in the TheraPro, put my TheraAir on, and I'd regenerate. Then I'd go do my swim. Now, the swim's first, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a second. But it was my easiest thing that I've just grown up in the water. I'm a fish. So I knew that if I finished with that in the day, I'd be more proud of myself. So I did my hardest thing first, then I did my second thing, and then the thing I know that I do best, last. So then I get done with my training, I'd come home, I started to get an appetite back. And what's cool about this is a lot of times when we are in this darkness, depressed, diseased state, our bodies tend to say, you know what? I just got to survive. Well, I was finally out of this survival situation, and now I'm in this like optimization part of like, okay, back to getting into that 1% performance. Now I'm like, I understand this and I know this. So now I started stacking it with my high Gauss. I started stacking it with hyperbaric. I started to look into all the other tools that I had. Then I learned about hydrogen water, and that completely changed my life. And I started using hydrogen water as part of my training. So what's unique about hydrogen water is that you're going to recover quicker, but your cells are going to be more oxygenated, which means your blood flow is going to be better, which your toxicity is going to go down, which is going to make you more optimal. Can we agree on that? So here's the cool thing about what happened next. So I had to travel. The whole month leading up to the Ironman, I was on the road probably 3 of those weeks. So now how do you manage training, traveling, life, a new girlfriend, and everything else that's going on in my life? Well, I can't take a high Gauss system with me. I don't have a private jet. I'm like, what do I have at my disposal that I can continue my training with no matter where I'm at? And I'm like, I got my TheraPro. I can pull that up. I've got my red light. I'd actually pack my TheraAir. I would start to use the tools that I had at my ability to go on the road. And so I would go get mini workouts, right? I'd sign up for a spin class somewhere. I'd jump in a pool. There was this one time I had to go to Baltimore. I was getting ready for the World Series. One of my players went down, and I had to do an overnight flight. So I did a red eye, landed at 6, went and did my workout, went and worked on the guy, flew back, and then flew back to the East Coast the next day. Wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done. But what was neat is that when I looked at my HRV, I didn't crash. And this is where objective findings are so important. And what we're really starting to look at now is not just how do I feel, see what's actually going on inside me. So I was starting to track it. In the beginning, I was crashing. And throughout this experience, I started to level out. And then what was cool is that even with the stress and strain, it started going like this. Because now that stress, that adaptation, improves your performance. It doesn't crash your performance. So we're the last week before the Ironman, and we're 2 days before the race, and I break out in the worst highs I've ever broken out with. I've never had a hive in my life. I'm like, I can barely breathe. I have welts. I'm like, what is going on with me? I'm not going to be able to do this race. People are going to think I'm an idiot. And by the way, don't ever post anything on social media that you say you're going to do. Because if it wasn't for my community holding me accountable, I don't know if I would have ever gotten out of that depressed state. It goes back to the team who's around you, right? So what do? I call Robbie, and I'm like, bro, I am like dying. And Kiki, my girlfriend's there, and she's like, get in the sauna, use binders, do this, do that. So I'm getting in the sauna, I'm using the binders, and Robbie's like, didn't I send you those frequency patches? And I'm like, yes, Robbie, you sent me those frequency patches. And he's like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to use immunity in the mitochondria. Here's the points to put them on. And just see what happens. And this is what made me a believer in frequency medicine. So I put them on, and I'm like putting things here, on my acupuncture points. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I'm not itchy. I'm like, okay, I can buy into this. Then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not hot anymore. I can breathe. My throat's starting to open up. I'm like, this is awesome. So I call Robbie, I'm like, it's working. He's like, cool, get in your sauna, do binders. I know Kiki told you. I'm like, I am. So I do. I go to bed, I wake up the next morning, I break out again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this race is tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, what tools do you have at your tool belt right now? I'm like, cold plunge. You're obviously having some type of response inside your body. So I go jump in the cold plunge. I come out. I wait till my shiver response is again. I go back in, come back out. And when I first got in, I'm trying to catch my breath. So I could tell that my nervous system was off. By the third time that I jumped in, I was calm. I said, okay, now I've regulated my nervous system. And we'll talk a little bit about processes and protocols on these in a little bit, but now my system knew, dude, you're not in a stressed state. You can do this. We can do this. You've prepared. You've done the work. Let's make this happen. So Ironman Day shows up. By the way, this is before the race. And my dad, from a very young age, always told me anything is possible. And some people in our life think that I was abused and probably should have had like HR or whoever else called. I tend to think that it helped me to be who I am. So you have a 2.5 mile swim, you've got the bike, and you got the run. So this is how it starts. I get into the swim. First 10 minutes, I get punched in the face. Like, decked. Harder than I've ever been punched. And what's crazy is my sister's on top of this bridge videoing, and she actually gets it on video. I got to get it from her so I can put this into the presentation one day. But you see me, and I'm just treading water. I'm like throwing up because I just swallowed all this water. I'm like dizzy. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, if I quit right now, like I got all these people here to support me. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, bro, you got tools. Breathe. So I went back to my breath work. So I calmed my nervous system down, and I kept going. So I get done with the race, or the swim portion, and I get out of the water, and my eyes like swollen. I'm like, okay, great, this is gonna be awesome. So I get to my bike. By the way, I never practiced a transition from water to bike. It is definitely a different experience taking off a wetsuit, putting on clothes, getting everything going. And my buddy's like, dude, you should practice your transitions. And I'm like, I probably should have. So I get into the tent, and everybody's there throwing stuff everywhere, and like it's frantic, right? And I panic, and I'm like, oh my God. And I start freaking out. And I'm like, wait, you have tools. Use your breath. So I start to calm myself down. I get my clothes on, I get on my bike, and I'm all proud of myself. I'm like, cool, I'm going out. Like, all my friends are there. It's kind of emotional. And I'm like, man, I'm going. And this lady hands me a water bottle. I don't know why I grabbed it. I grab it, and I put it on the front of my bike because other things were full with all my stuff. And somehow my computer comes off. Now, in an Ironman, your computer is your best friend, if you can afford one. Because you literally have everything programmed in there. It beeps at you, take a gel. Beeps at you, take a sip. Beeps at you, you're going to hit this. Beeps at you, you're going to do this. And so I actually trained with that. And I was like, cool. Well, I look down and my computer's gone. And I'm like, crap. I'm like, well, thank goodness I wore a watch today. So I'm like, you train for this. You have tools. You just need to use your tools. And so in the Ironman, they have different bags that you can put out at stations, right, at certain points of the race that you can go into, and you can have a Red Bull, you can have whatever you want. They do check for drugs. Which is a real thing, by the way. And instead, I go in, but I put all my patches there and I had alcohol wipes. And so I was like, all right, these are recovery patches. I know where to put them. So I would literally go, put my recovery patches on, go. I just kept going. So first lap, amazing. Second lap, the wind picked up by 25 miles. That's a big push. And if you're in Arizona, if you've ever been in Arizona, and you're on a flat road, that's a lot of wind. So I'm on the second lap, and I'm coming around a corner, and somebody's holding a sign that says, "Who hurt you?" And I'm like, you freaking a-hole. Like, really? Like, and so I go into this place of this darkness, destruction, everything that's here, and I forget about all of this awesome opportunity that I have over here. And I just start screaming, and I'm crying, and I'm angry. And I'm like, you have tools. Breathe. Know who you are. Know who's here to support you. Look at who's around you. Look at all you've gone through. And so I do. And so the third lap, we go back around. Now it's picked up 10 more miles an hour. And I'm coming around, and I'm like, why the hell did I do this? And like I tell people, I'm like, doing an Ironman is like doing 20 years of therapy in anywhere from like 9 to 20 hours. And as I'm going through this race, on this third lap, I'm starting to get like severe pain. And I'm like, I'm rarely in pain because of the tools that I use. But my neck's cramping, like I'm having like numbness and tingling, and like I'm just like miserable. And God just said to me, He's like, this is your moment. This is your moment. You have to feel this to be able to help people get out of this. You have to understand this to be able to transform who you're going to be put in front of. And I'm like, all right, I love that. Let's go. So get done with the bike, get my shoes on. I'm like, how the heck am I going to run a marathon? Like, how am I going to run a marathon right now? I've never ran a marathon, by the way. I was a middle distance and cross-country runner, but I never ran a marathon. And so I put my shoes on. And one thing they tell you when you're doing an Ironman is that you're going to get off your bike and you need to know your pace, because you're going to go out fast because your legs are used to turning, right? I didn't listen. And I was always a front pack runner anyway. My coaches never could get through to me. And so I get out. I feel great, right? First thing, like Kiki actually was in another state. She wasn't supposed to be there. And like first thing I come around, she's standing there with two of my best friends and his dogs. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I come around the corner, and next thing I know, I have patients there. And I'm like, what? And I come around the corner, I've got athletes there, like my pro athletes that came in. And I'm like, wow, this is not about you. This is bigger than you. And this is bigger than you guys. Like your mission, your intention is bigger than you. And so I get through 11 miles, and I'm actually killing it. I'm like, my coaches can't believe it. They're like, what the hell did he do? Like, we don't get it. And there's this guy in front of me. I'll be really nice right now. And I'm like, I'm on your left, and he moves left. And then I'm like, I'm on your right, he moves right. And I'm sitting here like, I want to push this guy over. And I'm like, no, that's not very nice. So I'm like, I'll go around him. Well, I go around him and I step in a hole. And so a few months prior, I had the honor to go work out with Tony Horton at his house. And if any of you have been watching his videos, he's got a crazy ninja. By the way, Tony is a specimen of an athlete. And he purposely makes you go first so he can show you that he can do more than you. And true stories. And so there's this part in his house where you climb up a rope, and then you climb onto this thing, you climb over to the side of his house on the second floor, then you're on these pegs, and then you drop down to this mat. And this was in my dark into this little happiness spot. And so I wasn't fully fit yet. I shouldn't have done what I was doing. And I was up there and I fell 2 stories right on my hip. And ended up tearing my labrum. And we had rehabbed it. We had used all of our stuff that we could. But I re-aggravated it. That's at mile 11 of a marathon. So this is where the endure is endurance, right? Like, you're committed at this point. And if you've got a health goal, you're committed, right? And if you've been in the work and you've been consistent, you're like, I'm not going to give up now. Because the beauty's on this other side of this endurance factor. So I end up getting to mile 16, and I can barely walk. And my ego's like, dude, you got to jog, you got to run. You can't stop. You can't slow down. You can't do this. And it's funny because everybody that was tracking me, they sent me texts. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, well, I don't have my phone. They're like, what happened to you? All of my friends from around that were cheering me on, they thought I just quit the race. And I'm sitting here and I'm hobbling and I'm going and they lost my bag, so I didn't have my last part of my gear from last part of my run. And I'm like, just stay calm. Just stay in your moment. Be present. And so this guy comes up next to me, and he's like, first Ironman? I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, yeah, it's my 30th. And I'm like, awesome. He's 65. He's like, puts his hand on me. He's like, you know it's okay to walk? He's like, it's okay. He goes, that's what this race is about. He's like, it's this journey. So enjoy the journey, and I'll see you at the finish line. And I remember it's this day, I'm like, crap, did you not learn the lesson in Africa when they told you pole, 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 and what that means is just one step? You don't have, if you try to push Kilimanjaro, you will crash. And I'm like, thank goodness for this experience in Africa to remind me in America to slow down. Because I'm gas on the accelerator all the time, right? So I get done with the race, and I'm coming around the corner, and I was an 800 runner. And I'm like, I can't, if this is being video or photoed, I can't be walking in. And so there's 800 meters left in the race, and I'm like, I'm going to sprint this in. So in all the pain that I had, I sprint in. And one of the things that I wish that I would have listened to, there might be a pattern here you're seeing, is that somebody told me, when you get to the red carpet, enjoy the moment. Slow down. Look around. Appreciate where you are. You only get one time for that one moment, right? Well, I just zoomed right through it. And I get to the finish line, they give me my medal. All my friends are there, my sister's there. And I'm just so ecstatic, right? I'm like, cool, but I didn't have this feeling everybody's like, oh, you're gonna be so happy you finished an Ironman. Everybody's like, congratulations. I'm like, no way. I'm like, I'd give this medal back today. I'm like, I'm grateful for this journey. This journey that I just went on. Because I let go of so many demons. I saw what was inside me. I saw the opportunity of who I could be and where I can go. And so my sister was amazing that night, and Kiki was amazing that night. We go back to my house, and my sister's like, I love you, but I'm going home. And I'm like, cool, because I actually wanted to have a giant party in the backyard, and everybody's like, you're not going to want to have a party. And I went longer than I thought I would, and finally I canceled the party, and Kiki's like, thank God. So we get home, and she orders me pizza, because she's like, what do you want? I'm like, I want pizza. And so she orders me a pizza, and I can't eat. And all of a sudden, I go into shock, full-on shock. And I'm like, crap. And what do you have? You have a cold plunge. I go jump in the cold plunge. She's like, why don't you just get in the sauna for an hour? So I get in the sauna for an hour. And then I sleep on my TheraPro the whole night, and she'll tell you, I was shaking, shivering, like it was miserable. But by 7 o'clock in the morning, I was good. I actually went to my practice and practiced that day. Everyone's like, what are you doing here? I thought you were going to take the day off. I'm like, no, I'm not taking the day off. They're like, didn't you just do the Ironman yesterday? I'm like, yeah, is there a problem? Let's go. So what was cool about this is that all my other friends that did it, they were like wrecked, right? They were like, I was like, get in the clinic, let's do some work. So I ended up finishing at 14:29, but I hope this shows you that everything's your nervous system. And you can have all the tools and everything else, but it's how you use it. How resilient are you? And how efficient are you? And can you connect efficiency to resiliency? And if you can do that, you literally can do anything. If that's healing from a disease, if that's conquering a major goal, if that's saving your marriage, if it's getting in a relationship, if it's conquering your business, we have to understand our nervous system. We got to play that piano board. One of the analogies one of my breathwork instructors that I teach with every week, he told me the analogy one time that, in emotions, we like to play a couple of favorite keys, right? We're like angry, happy, or angry, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We only know these 2 keys. But what we forget about is all these other beautiful keys, all these other different emotions that we don't want to play with because they make us uncomfortable. They make us like, I don't know if I can do that. It takes me back to a moment when I was a kid, or this girl, or this guy, or this situation. But what that training did for me was teach me how to use the whole entire keyboard. And so when you get comfortable using this is really what it's about. Take a picture of this slide, because if there's one slide I want you to take a picture of, if you incorporate this specific just tools into your life, you can regulate your nervous system. You can change your life. You can change your family's life. Everybody got it? No? No, I'm kidding. All right. Everybody got it? Cool. So I'm going to wrap with this, and I think it's really important that the hole you give through is the hole you receive through. And so going back to Africa, we get done. 7 of the porters ended up having to go play a soccer or football match that day after we got off the mountain. And what was interesting about this situation is we were like, our itinerary, we're supposed to be at this next amazing resort towards the Serengeti so we could go do our safari. And I just had a bond with these guys. I was adjusting them on the mountain, and I'm like, I would love to come see you play. I love sport. And I'm in another country, and you guys won your region, and you're playing this elite game. I want to come see you play. And by the way, I want to buy everybody lunch so you're fueled so that when we play, you're ready to go. So we end up going to the game, and they don't have tables, by the way. They're sharing shoes, and I start adjusting everybody. They're playing the Tanzanian government police force because they're getting ready for the police games. That's why they brought them in, because they were the best of the region, right? Well, I had no idea what I was getting into. Number one, I'm pulling up to like a guarded area, prison, / academy, and they're looking at us like we're the only white people there. And they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, these are my players. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I'm their doctor, these are my players, like, this is what we're doing. I'm like, okay, come on in. So everybody starts to crowd around us, right? And I'm adjusting, going through them. The minister of like, whatever he was, I can't remember like the exact title, shows up. And he's like, I want you guys to come sit with us. Now, mind you, never been to Tanzania, never met anybody. And now we're sitting in center court field, like with all these officials, like in like full-on uniform, like military and everything. And I'm like, I'm just sitting here in like complete gratitude for everything they've given me over these last 7 days on the mountain. And I've been able to give back to them. And so the guy like nudges me and he's like, can I take you on a tour? And I'm like, sure. So he goes and shows me the whole entire like academy, and it's worn down, and I'm setting a foundation up to help them hopefully fix some things. But what was cool about this is he's like, I got some people in pain. Can you help them? And I'm like, looking at the watch. I'm like, I got an itinerary. We're supposed to be there. I'm going to get killed by the people I'm with. Yeah, I'll help. So I started working on one guy. Then I got a girl. Next thing I know, I have a line of like 74 people. And I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, no, dude, this is what you're here for. Just do it. And so I started adjusting everybody, working on it. So I'm like, she needs an MRI. This needs this needs this, that needs that. And we get done, and we take this giant picture. And when you leave Kilimanjaro, they give you a certificate when you actually accomplish the mission, right? So usually your guide just gives it to you, but he had it, and he forgot about it. And they're like, do you have the thing? So they bring us into by the way, they ended up winning the game against the police force. And they bring us in like a giant huddle and like give us our certificates in front of the entire academy and all these people. And I'm leaving, and the guy just comes up to me and says, thank you. I was like, you're very welcome. I said, thank you. And he goes, why? I go, because your country has given me so much, even in just 7 days. The fact that I can give back to you means more to me than anything else. This was worth the trip. So think about your life. Like, what are you doing, right, in your life that you can give more to? That you're going to receive tenfold back, right? So if you want to learn more about me, one thing I am going to talk about from stage is called Thera Optimal Health. It's going to be our learning platform. You're probably wondering, how do I use these tools? What do I do? How can I get involved? How can I be better? We're going to be launching it. We're going to have a foundations course on how to get your basic, kind of like over here in the middle. I'm going to run over this 1% like optimization performance side. So we're going to be taking you through how to use different modalities. We're going to have everything from chronic disease to high performance to mental to biological dentistry. We've got about 40 faculty already on board from around the world that are just phenomenal. It's like a masterclass for performance and health. So if you're interested in that, follow Thera Optimal Health on Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Sean Drake. This is Robbie Besner, TheraMan on Instagram. And you know, I did talk about hydrogen water, so if you want to try some, inhale, and then we've got hydrogen water bottles as well now. But I am made that, and it's been a game changer in my life. So if you're interested in learning more, come see me. If you do me a favor, no questions here. Come down to the booth. That way we can be respectful of the next speaker. And I'll give you all the time. I'm here for the next 2 days. But do me a favor, last second, we've got 5 more minutes. Close your eyes again. And what I want you to do is I want you to feel your body now. I want you to see where you are. I want to see where you're going. I want you to smile. And play with me. Really smile. Like, feel your body. Because this type of change can change everything. Now I want you to laugh. Just make it up. Cool. Now take a deep breath in. And then sigh on the way out. Big breath in. So the cool thing about breath is it's one of the greatest tools that I've learned over the last 3 years on how to control my nervous system. So if you can start with that, the 3 types of breaths that I recommend to you, in the nose, out the nose, anywhere from 5 to 6 seconds each, do that consistently for about 15 minutes. It's going to regulate a lot of stuff in your body and take you into parasympathetic. And the cool thing about breathing in the nose, out of the nose, also the breath of meditation for focus, calm, and non-reaction. Now, if you breathe in your nose, out your mouth, so do that with me. One more time. Now we're moving energy differently, right? So this is one of the breaths, if we look at ancient like philosophy of like geometrics and like attraction, abundance. What's cool about this is that as you're breathing in your nose, out your mouth, you're actually affecting your pineal gland, which releases natural DMT. So if you like that kind of thing, you can get high on your own supply. Now breathe in your mouth, out your mouth. Like, let's go deep. Feel your stomach open, chest, neck. One more. Can you feel the difference? That's a power breath. That's one of my favorite breaths. It's going to take you deep into your soul, help you actually reconnect. So if you're starting to think about how can I work with my nervous system at home, if you need calm or if you're stressed, go nose, nose. If you're trying to create, you're trying to be abundant, go nose, mouth. If you're trying to perform or you're trying to break through, go mouth, mouth. And keep it consistent. I call it conscious connected, right? So when you do a breath in, go immediately breath out. And then breath in, and then breath out. Don't have any pauses. You can practice a thing called a breath suspension as well. So when you breathe in, all the way out, hold. And by the way, don't stand when you do this. Hold as long as you can. What you're going to start to notice is that your body's going to adapt, and you're going to get better and better and better. And so this is how you can start to train your body and train your soul. I want to say thank you. You guys are probably like the most attentive group I've spoken to in a long time. Thank you for letting me share my story, and thank you for showing love.